Hello and welcome. Today we are looking at a commentary video on shrinkflation, specifically analyzing a Reddit feed and some recent comments from the McDonald's CEO.
Let's get right into it.
Okay, so a big theme here, I think, is this tension between having a ton of evidence, all these images of cheese, candy, macaroni, and actually building a narrative.
Right.
The way it's set up now, it's just a linear reaction to a Reddit feed, and that really waters down the impact. It makes every example feel the same.
It's that scrolling trap, isn't it? It feels like the hosts are discovering this stuff at the exact same time as the audience.
Exactly. Which brings us right to our first major critique point. The current structure, by relying on that linear scroll, it prevents the audience from seeing the systemic nature of the issue.
I want to dig into that because reaction content is a huge genre. It's supposed to feel authentic, Just hit record and see what happens.
Sure, but the weakness here is that the listener just gets this totally randomized list of complaints.
Yeah, you jump from Instacart to Cadbury eggs, then suddenly you're on a macaroni box, then eyeshadow, then the cheese corners.
It's like flipping through a photo album instead of building a legal case. It's just chaotic.
And the pacing drag. I'm thinking of that moment where they get confused about whether macaroni is a trademark versus rice-a-roni.
Yes, because they're seeing it live, they're busy figuring out what they're even looking at. So the whole thing becomes a, what is this session?
Instead of, look at what this means.
Precisely.
I'm just watching someone be surprised by a box of pasta.
So what's the alternative? Is there a risk that if you structure it too much, you lose that spontaneous feel?
I don't think so. I actually think structure can amplify the emotion because it gives it a direction.
Okay, so the suggestion then is to organize all this visual evidence into distinct tactical categories of shrinkflation instead of just scrolling.
Right. You group the examples. You build a stronger story about corporate deception. You move from, wow, look at that, to look at this pattern.
I like that. So let's get concrete. What kind of categories are we talking about here?
Well, let's start with what we could call Category A, the visual trick.
Okay.
The source material has that great example of the Stroop waffle that doesn't cover the coffee cup anymore.
Yeah, it's just a little too small so it falls right in. And the macaroni box where the fill line is like 3 inches from the top, it's all air.
Exactly. In both cases, the package is the same size, right? It takes up the same shelf space, but the product inside is shrunk.
It's all about fooling your eye.
It's an optical illusion of value.
So if you group those two together, you're not just showing smaller food, you're exposing a specific psychological tactic.
You're telling the audience, here is exactly how they trick your eyes, which is so much more powerful than just, hey, this waffle is small.
It changes the host's role from a victim to an investigator.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. But not all shrinkflation is visual like that, right? Sometimes the item looks the same, but it's just worse.
And that's our next category. Let's call it Category B, the recipe downgrade.
Okay.
The piece mentions those Queen Anne's cordial cherries going from 12 to 10 and now to 8.
Right, and they talk about the spacing in the box and how the product itself just feels degraded.
And the cake frosting, I remember them pointing out the layers were almost see-through.
Yes, the thinner frosting layer. So this isn't just a visual trick anymore, it's a clear reduction in value.
If you group the cherries and the cakes together, the argument becomes about quality being stripped away along with quantity.
You're showing the recipe itself is under attack just to save, a fraction of a cent.
I see the arc you're building. You start with, they're tricking your eyes. Then you move to, they're ruining the recipe. But you need a big finish.
You can't end on thin frosting. It feels a little soft for a finale.
You need the smoking gun.
Which is Category C, the absurdist cutting. And there's one example in the material that is just pure gold for this.
The cheese slice.
The cheese slice with the corners cut off.
Unbelievable. The package is still a rectangle, but the cheese inside is an octagon because they shaved off the corners.
It's the perfect bridge to the whole corporate argument. It proves the intent is to maximize profit at this granular, almost comical level.
Someone in a boardroom actually calculated the savings from removing 4 tiny triangles of cheese.
And if you save that for the end of the visual section, you prove to the audience that these companies are obsessed with margins to the point of absurdity.
That's a really strong narrative. You've gone from, is this happening, to, here's how they trick you, to, they're destroying the product, and you end with, they are literally cutting corners.
It's a legal case, not just a reaction video.
Exactly. It respects the audience. It says, we did the homework.
And that brings us to the next point. Because once the structure is there, we have to look at how the hosts talk. So our second critique.
Let's hear it.
The recurring use of uncertain language and these unverified anecdotes, it really undermines the host's credibility as commentator.
This stood out to me too. A lot of, I think, I swear to God, if I remember correctly.
It feels casual, which is fine, but maybe too casual?
It crosses a line from casual into, well, unprepared. The weakness is that there are just too many moments where they're guessing.
Like the part about the Cadbury eggs, where the host goes, I think it was BJ Novak 10 or 12 years ago.
Or the debate about whether the sheet's 6-inch subs are actually 6 inches. It's all based on a feeling.
It feels like gossip. And when you're accusing massive corporations of essentially theft, gossip isn't enough.
No. And the vague memory of that McDonald's employee budget guide, summarizing it as live in a cockroach-infested hole.
It's colorful, but it lacks weight because the host admits they're just pulling it from memory. The whole thing starts to feel like two friends complaining in a car, not an industry critique.
That's a harsh but I think a necessary truth. I wonder though, is there a charm to that we're missing? Some people like that I'm just as confused as you vibe.
I think you can keep the tone, but you have to arm it with facts. You elevate the anger by validating. If you're guessing, the audience can dismiss you. If you know, they have to listen.
Okay, so the suggestion is to pre-verify all these historical points, deliver them as truth bombs, not questions.
Yes, you shift the tone from a confused consumer to an informed advocate.
That makes sense. Instead of asking, am I crazy, you're saying, I am right, and here's the proof.
Let's walk through it. The Cadbury egg is a classic example.
Right. Instead of fumbling for the name and the date.
The script should just state it, definitive. In 2007, BJ Novak famously exposed the Cadbury shrinkage on Conan. He brought out an old egg and a new one, proving this has been a corporate strategy for nearly 2 decades.
Wow, that hits so much harder. It anchors the complaint in history. It shows this isn't new.
What about the sub sandwich? That felt so subjective. It feels like 3.5 inch.
I swear to God is not a unit of measurement. So the improvement is simple. Do the work.
We measured the current 6-inch sub against the bun size from 5 years ago, and the bread has officially shrunk by 15%.
That's actionable. And it stops the audience from thinking, well, maybe your hands are just big. It turns a feeling into a hard metric.
Exactly. Removes any counterargument. But the most important one, I think, is that McDonald's budget guide.
The McResource thing, right?
The host says, remember, they had that thing, live in a cockroach-infested hole.
But the reality is so much more damning than that vague memory.
So much more. The suggestion is to quote the actual 2013 McDonald's Employee Resource Guide.
Which said what?
It literally listed second job in the sample budget for an employee to make ends meet. It didn't mention cockroach. It just said working full-time at McDonald's wasn't enough to live.
Wow, that is actually worse.
Much worse. And when you quote that document directly, you're not just being mean to McDonald's, you're using their own internal logic against them.
You're saying you admitted this in writing.
It shifts the segment from a rant into an indictment.
A crucial distinction. We're moving from I think they're bad to they admitted they are bad. It just lends so much gravity to the whole piece.
Our third critique point is that the analysis of the McDonald's CEO's comments is completely isolated at the end, and that disconnects the cause from the effect.
I definitely noticed that. You spend 10 minutes looking at small food, laughing at the cheese, and then boom, it's a business news segment about a quarterly earnings call.
The transition is jarring. It feels like 2 different videos spliced together.
And the weakness there is that they wait until the very end to bring up the CEO admitting they're losing low-income customers and shifting toward, quote, richies.
By separating that from the proof, the fries, the meal deals, they miss the chance to highlight the irony in real time.
So is the risk here that mixing them up gets too messy? Or is connecting the visual to the corporate strategy the entire point?
The connection is the entire point. The listener needs to see the result while hearing the justification.
Okay, so the suggestion is to integrate the CEO's quotes directly into the visual critique. A
narrative counterpoint. Use the corporate jargon to actually narrate the visual evidence of the shrinking food.
I love that term, narrative counterpoint. It's very cinematic. How would that work, say, with the large fry scam they mention?
Okay, so they show the large fry bag that fits loosely inside the large fry box, right? All that empty space. It's a visual scam.
Right. Infuriating.
In the current version, they just sort of laugh about it. But imagine this. As you show that image, you play a voiceover of the CEO's actual quote about re-engaging the low-income consumer.
Oh, that stings. That is visceral.
It creates this sharp, ironic contrast. You hear him saying, "We want you back," while you're looking at the evidence of them ripping you off.
The irony does all the work for you. You don't have to tell the audience to be mad. The juxtaposition makes them mad.
It proves the re-engagement is just marketing, while the fry box is the reality. The material also mentions the CEO talking about consumer anxiety.
Yes, anxiety and unease about pricing. The hosts kind of mock that, like, golly gee, they might be worried about money.
It's a bit dismissive. We can make it sharper.
By linking it to a product again?
Exact.
Juxtapose that quote immediately with the Valentine's brownies that dropped from 6 to 5. You show that the anxiety isn't some abstract feeling, it's the mathematical reality of paying the same price for 17% less product. He calls it anxiety. The visual proves it's just math.
That is so much stronger. It grounds the corporate speak in reality. It strips away the euphemisms. And what about the Disney comparison?
That's where you bring in the richies. The CEO explicitly admitted to gaining high-income customers, so when the hosts are talking about the crazy high price of a meal deal,
You bring up that quote right then. Don't wait.
yes, it explains why the prices are so high.
Because they're not building the menu for the broke customer they claim to miss. They're pricing it for the new customer they just gained.
It closes the loop. It answers the question the visual raises.
That's fascinating. It really does tie the whole thing together. Instead of just reacting to symptoms, you're diagnosing the disease with the doctor's own notes.
What are the downsides, though? Does it just require too much editing?
It requires more preparation, for sure. You can't just hit record and scroll. You need the quotes ready, maybe on a soundboard or just print it out.
You have to weave it all together. But the payoff is a piece of content that hits with the weight of a documentary, not the lightness of a reaction stream.
It transforms the listener's experience from, like, shared frustration to righteous indignation. It feels like something that could actually change a mind.
And that's the goal. We want the audience to leave understanding the system, not just the symptom.
Okay, so to recap, we're talking about 3 major shifts for the creator here.
Yeah. First, abandon the live scroll. Categorize the evidence into visual tricks, recipe downgrades, and absurdist cost cutting. Turn the list into a story.
Second,
Replace the conversational guessing with verified fact. Don't guess about BJ Novak, know it. Quote the document. That builds authority.
and finally,
Weave the CEO's commentary throughout the visual example. Use his own words to narrate the theft. That's the narrative counterpoint.
it sounds like a heavy lift, but it turns a good rant into a great weapon.
Absolutely. We want to help the creator move from being a reactor to being a real commentator.
I would love to see this recut. It feels like the difference between a rough draft and a finished article.
Me too. So, to the listener who submitted this, we invite you to take these lenses, structure, authority, and narrative counterpoint, and restructure this segment. Rework the script and submit the revision back to us. We really want to see how sharp this blade can get.
Don't just scroll. Build a case.
Exact. That's all for this critique. We look forward to seeing the revision.